I am Ibrahim Traoré, and I stand before you today, not as a mere figure of authority, but as someone who believes deeply in the idea that true justice requires us to break the systems that have for too long suppressed the voices of the people. For years, my country, Burkina Faso, has been a battleground, not just for physical survival, but for the very essence of justice. The systems that were in place before my rise to leadership were not designed for fairness. They were constructed to protect the interests of a few, while the majority of our people struggled to survive. This inequality was too great to ignore, and it was evident that the status quo could not be allowed to continue. Breaking the system, in my eyes, was not merely about challenging the old guard or even dismantling the government structure. It was about recognizing that our people, who have long been excluded from the promise of justice and opportunity, deserved something more. It was about upending the cycle of corruption, exploitation, and neglect that had left too many of our citizens in the dark. Social justice, for me, means creating a system where the weak are not trampled under the feet of the powerful. It means ensuring that every citizen, regardless of their background or their circumstances, has access to the basic rights they deserve: security, education, and the dignity that comes with knowing they matter. The stand I took was not easy. It was a decision to confront the uncomfortable truths about our society and to say loudly that things must change. We couldn't keep allowing one group of people to benefit at the expense of another. This fight for social justice is not just political, it's deeply personal. It's about giving every Burkinabe the chance to lead a life of dignity, no matter their status, race, or heritage. I understand the gravity of the path we have chosen. It requires sacrifices, and there will be challenges along the way. But I firmly believe that true social justice cannot be achieved without dismantling the old structures that have perpetuated inequality. It's not just about policy reform, it's about shifting the very mindset that allows injustice to exist in the first place. The system we have broken is not just one of government or power, it's a mindset that has dominated for far too long. Breaking it requires courage and the will to create something better. It's a difficult journey, but one that I am determined to continue, because I believe in the possibility of a fairer, more just Burkina Faso. We are not simply rebuilding a government or a military, we are rebuilding the future, a future where justice is not a privilege but a right for all. And though the road ahead is not clear, I stand firm in my commitment to break the old system in the pursuit of true justice, because the people of Burkina Faso deserve nothing less.
As an anchor, I now delve into the words that have been shared by Ibrahim Traoré, a leader who has set a powerful narrative in motion, one that challenges the very foundation of injustice in his country, Burkina Faso. Let's break down the key elements of what he has just conveyed. The first and most crucial point that Ibrahim Traoré makes is his assertion that the system as it was before his leadership was flawed, not by accident but by design. He speaks of a system that favored a select few, leaving the majority of the population struggling to survive. It's important to understand that when he refers to breaking the system, he's not talking about a simple change in leadership or a shift in power. He's talking about the deep-rooted societal structures that perpetuate inequality. For years, these structures have kept the masses from access to the basic rights and opportunities they deserve. The system was never about justice. It was about maintaining power and privilege in the hands of a few, while the rest of the population was left to suffer in poverty and deprivation. By breaking this system, Ibrahim Traoré does not merely challenge the political elite or the government. He is challenging the very ideologies that have entrenched power and wealth in the hands of a few. His aim is to dismantle the cycle of corruption, exploitation, and neglect that has been operating in the country for generations. This is a stark recognition of how systemic injustice operates, how it does not simply manifest in individual acts of corruption, but in entire frameworks that marginalize whole groups of people. For Ibrahim, social justice is not just an abstract or theoretical concept. It's a tangible, achievable goal that means giving people the chance to live with dignity. His vision of justice isn't about handouts or charity, it's about equity. It's about ensuring that every Burkinabe citizen, no matter their background, has the same opportunities to thrive. This means ensuring access to essential resources like security, education, and the protection of basic human dignity, things that many have been denied for far too long. He acknowledges that taking such a stand is not easy, and this is a key element of his leadership. It is one thing to recognize the flaws of a system, but it is another to confront them head-on. Traore's journey has not been about playing it safe or simply rearranging the deck chairs of the old system. It has been about upending that system entirely, even at the cost of personal and political sacrifices. This, he acknowledges, is a difficult path, fraught with challenges, but it is one he believes in because the alternative is a continued cycle of injustice and inequality. Moreover, Ibrahim Traoré emphasizes the need for a shift in mindset. Breaking the system is not only about changing policies or political structures, it's about changing the way people think. The mindset of injustice, the belief that certain individuals or groups have more value, more rights, and more opportunities than others, must be dismantled. This is where the real work begins. Social justice doesn't just happen through legislative action. It happens when individuals and communities internalize the value of fairness, equality, and respect for all. Finally, Traoré's message is not just a call for reform, but a call for a complete transformation of the nation's future. He speaks of rebuilding, not just the government or military, but the very future of Burkina Faso, a future where justice is not a privilege for the few, but a right for all. And this, of course, requires determination and unwavering commitment. Ibrahim Traoré's dedication to this cause is clear. Despite the uncertainty of the road ahead, he remains steadfast in his resolve to break down the old system and build something far more just and equitable for all Burkinabe people. In essence, Ibrahim Traoré is not simply speaking to his country. He's speaking to the world about the need for radical systemic change in how we view justice and equality. His words are not just about his country's struggles. They are a universal call for a world where everyone has the chance to live a life of dignity and opportunity. His journey is one of courage, conviction, and the unwavering belief that true justice can only come from challenging the very structures that have perpetuated inequality for so long. Ibrahim Traoré's words are not just those of a political leader, but of someone who is acutely aware of the deep-seated inequalities that have plagued his country, Burkina Faso, for far too long. When he talks about breaking the system, it's not a metaphor for a simple political upheaval. He's addressing a fundamental issue that stretches far beyond government structures. It's about dismantling a system that has been in place for years, a system that has perpetuated injustice, corruption, and exploitation. Traoré's statement is powerful because it speaks to a larger truth. He is acknowledging that the problems in his country are not merely the result of bad governance or failed policies. They are symptoms of an underlying structural issue. The system itself is designed to favor the powerful, to exclude the weak, and to keep those in control insulated from the suffering of the people. For years, the voices of the majority of Burkinabe citizens have been silenced, their needs ignored, and their rights trampled upon. When he says the system must be broken, he is acknowledging that it is not just a matter of removing a few bad actors. The entire framework must be re-evaluated and reconstructed to create a more just society. By breaking the system, Traoré speaks not only of the political elite, but also the ideological systems that have been deeply embedded in the culture and psyche of the nation. His vision of justice isn't a theoretical one, it's an active pursuit of equity, where access to essential human rights such as security, education, and healthcare is not a privilege reserved for the few, but a right guaranteed to all. This is what sets his vision apart from mere political rhetoric. It's about real, tangible outcomes that affect the daily lives of people on the ground. When Traoré talks about giving people dignity, he's talking about empowering people to feel valued in a system that has long made them feel invisible and insignificant. But Ibrahim Traoré doesn't sugarcoat the difficulties that come with such a radical shift. He is keenly aware that the path he has chosen is fraught with challenges. Breaking the system doesn't come without sacrifice. It's easy to say the status quo must change, but doing so requires confronting a deeply entrenched power structure that has resisted change for generations. It requires immense courage to stand against the very forces that have held sway for so long. Traoré understands this. He knows that the road to justice will be filled with obstacles, but he remains resolute because he understands the magnitude of the change needed. His call for a shift in mindset is also crucial. To break the system is to change how people perceive power, privilege, and rights. It's about reshaping the collective consciousness, teaching people that justice is not a favor, but an inherent right. This shift goes beyond policy changes. It requires a fundamental rethinking of how society functions, from the way leaders treat their citizens to the way ordinary citizens view each other. Moreover, when Ibrahim Traoré speaks of rebuilding, he's not simply referring to political institutions or economic policies. He's talking about rebuilding the very fabric of society. He's talking about creating a future where justice is not a luxury for the few, but a guarantee for all. This vision of the future is one where social justice is the cornerstone, where every person, regardless of their background or status, can live a life of dignity and security. This is what true social justice looks like to him, a nation where every citizen is treated equally and where no one is left behind. Ibrahim Traoré's commitment to breaking the old system is not just a political statement, it is a profound call for radical change. He is asking his people to look beyond the current order, to see a future where justice, equality, and opportunity are not reserved for the privileged few, but available to all. His words are a beacon of hope for those who have been oppressed for too long, and his actions, though difficult, are proof of his unwavering belief that a better, fairer Burkina Faso is not only possible, but essential for the prosperity of the nation.
I stand before you not just as a leader, but as someone who has witnessed the struggles of our people, felt their pain and seen the injustice that has plagued this nation for far too long. The system that we inherited was never built for the people. It was built to serve those in power, to keep the weak in their place, and to deny opportunity to the masses. That is the reality we face every day, and it's why I have made the decision to challenge it, to break it down and rebuild something that serves us all. We cannot, in good conscience, allow this system to continue. The cycles of corruption, inequality, and exploitation must end. It is not enough to simply critique the system or to hope that it will fix itself. We must take action, bold, decisive action. For years, our people have been pushed aside, their voices unheard, their needs ignored. We have been told to wait, to be patient, to accept the reality that has been thrust upon us. But that is no longer enough. We cannot afford to wait any longer, because waiting only means further suffering for those who already endure the most. The reality is clear. Those who hold power do not understand the lives of the people. They do not understand what it means to struggle every day for survival, to see your children go without food or education, to live in fear of violence and instability. These are not abstract issues for us. They are the daily experiences of our people. And we cannot, in good faith, continue to allow this injustice to thrive. Breaking the system is not a call to arms for the sake of violence. It is a call to break the chains that have held us back for so long. It is a call to dismantle the structures of power that have concentrated wealth and opportunity in the hands of a few, while leaving the rest of us in the shadows. This system has denied our people access to what is rightfully theirs: dignity, security, and opportunity. I will not stand by and watch as the next generation suffers the same fate. But make no mistake, breaking the system will not be easy. There will be resistance, there will be obstacles, and there will be moments where we feel like we are walking through a storm with no end in sight. But even in the darkest moments, I believe in the strength of the people. I believe in the power of a nation united by the vision of a fairer, more just future. We have been divided for too long, pitted against one another, kept apart by forces that benefit from our disunity. It is time for us to come together, to see each other as brothers and sisters in this struggle for justice. And this struggle, it is not just political, it is deeply personal. It is about the lives of our children, the futures of our youth, the dignity of our elders. It is about giving every citizen a chance to live a life of meaning, to contribute to society, to build a future that is not defined by their circumstances of birth, but by their potential and their dreams. This is not just a fight for Burkina Faso, it is a fight for humanity. If we are truly to create a world where justice and equality reign, we must break the systems that perpetuate inequality, that allow the powerful to trample the powerless, that keep people trapped in poverty and despair. This is the challenge we face, and it is one that I am prepared to face head-on, with all the strength and determination that I have. We must create a new future, one that is not bound by the failures of the past, but one that is defined by the promise of a better tomorrow. A future where every Burkinabe has access to the rights they deserve, where no one is left behind, and where justice is not a privilege for the few, but a right for all. This is the vision that guides me, and it is the vision I will fight for every day, no matter the cost. I stand before you today, not as a politician or a military leader, but as a fellow citizen, as someone who shares in your struggles, and as someone who believes in the possibility of a brighter, more just, Burkina Faso. This journey will not be easy, but it is one we must take. The road ahead may be long, but I have no doubt that together we will build the nation we deserve. A nation that is defined by its justice, its unity, and its unwavering commitment to the people. I stand before you today not merely as a figure of authority, but as a man who has seen the suffering of our people firsthand. I have heard their cries for justice. I have seen the despair in their eyes, and I have felt the weight of the injustices that have been perpetuated for far too long. The time has come for us to take action, not just for the sake of today, but for the future generations of Burkina Faso. The road we are about to walk is one of great challenge, but it is also one of immense promise, because it is a road that leads us away from oppression and towards a future where justice, dignity, and opportunity are accessible to all. For far too long, our nation has been shackled by a system that has served the interests of the few while leaving the majority of our people to suffer. This system was never meant to work for the people. It was designed to protect the privileges of a small elite while keeping the rest of us in the dark, struggling to make ends meet. The system has been built on corruption, inequality, and exploitation. It has thrived on the silence of those who have been marginalized, on the disempowerment of the poor, and on the neglect of the very people it was supposed to serve. As I stand before you, I know that the task I have taken on is not an easy one. Breaking the system is not a simple task. It is a monumental challenge that will require all of us to come together and work towards a shared vision of justice. It will require us to confront the harsh truths about our past, to acknowledge the ways in which we have been failed by the systems that should have protected us, and to face the uncomfortable reality that change is not just necessary, but urgent. But make no mistake, this is not a challenge we face alone. It is a challenge we face together, as a people united in our commitment to a fairer, more just Burkina Faso. For too long, we have been divided by the very forces that benefit from our disunity. The elite, the powerful, and those who seek to maintain the status quo have worked tirelessly to pit us against one another, to keep us fractured, and to prevent us from realizing our collective strength. It is time for us to cast aside our differences and come together for the common good, because our future depends on it. When I speak of breaking the system, I am not just talking about tearing down the government or removing those in power. I am talking about breaking down the deep-seated ideologies and structures that have kept us in a state of perpetual inequality. These systems were not accidental. They were deliberately constructed to ensure that power and wealth remained concentrated in the hands of the few, while the majority of the population was left to suffer in silence. We must break these systems, not just because they are unjust, but because they are unsustainable. A nation that thrives on inequality is a nation that is destined to fail. A society that allows the powerful to trample on the weak will eventually crumble under the weight of its own injustice. But this is not just about dismantling a corrupt system. It is about building something new. It is about creating a society where every citizen, regardless of their background or circumstances, has access to the opportunities they deserve. It is about creating a nation where security, education, and healthcare are not luxuries reserved for the privileged few, but basic rights afforded to all. Social justice, to me, means a system where the weakest among us are not forgotten, where the most vulnerable are not left to suffer, and where every individual has the opportunity to reach their full potential. We are not talking about charity here. We are talking about fairness. We are talking about a fundamental shift in the way we view our society. For too long, the systems that have been in place have perpetuated a false hierarchy, one that tells people they are not worthy of basic human rights simply because of where they were born, the color of their skin, or their socioeconomic status. We cannot continue to tolerate a system that allows some people to live in luxury while others struggle to survive. True justice is about equality, and it is time we make that a reality. However, this will not happen overnight. The road to justice is not an easy one. There will be resistance, there will be setbacks, and there will be moments of doubt. But we must not allow those obstacles to stop us. We must remain steadfast in our resolve to change the system, to break it down and build something new in its place. This is not just a political struggle, it is a moral one. It is a fight for the very soul of our nation, for the principles of fairness, equality, and human dignity that should guide every decision we make. We must be prepared to make sacrifices. Change is never easy, and it never comes without cost. But the cost of inaction, the cost of allowing the system to continue, is far greater. If we allow the status quo to persist, we are condemning future generations to the same suffering we have endured. We are sentencing them to a life where the powerful continue to exploit the weak, where corruption is rampant, and where justice is a distant dream. That is a future none of us can accept. I understand that many of you may feel uncertain about the future. You may wonder if change is truly possible, if the system can really be broken, if justice can truly be achieved. But I stand before you today to tell you that it is possible. I believe in the power of the people. I believe in our ability to come together, to unite behind a common cause, and to fight for the future we deserve. We have done it before, and we can do it again. We are not simply rebuilding a government or a military. We are rebuilding the future of our nation. We are building a Burkina Faso where justice is not a privilege for the few, but a right for all. A nation where the poor, the marginalized, and the oppressed are not left behind, but lifted up. A nation where every citizen has the opportunity to succeed, to live with dignity, and to contribute to the collective prosperity of our society. This is the vision that drives me, and it is the vision that I will fight for every single day. It will not be easy and it will not happen overnight, but I am committed to this cause because I believe in the future of our country. I believe in the potential of every Burkinabe citizen, and I know that together we can create a brighter, more just future for all. The road ahead may be long and difficult, but it is a road worth traveling. We must have faith in ourselves and each other, and in the power of justice. We must be willing to stand up, to speak out, and to take action, no matter the cost. We must be Walloons in our pursuit of a Burkina Faso that is truly free, truly just, and truly equal. The people of Burkina Faso deserve nothing less, and I will fight for that vision until the very end.
Ibrahim Traoré's speech resonates with the weight of a nation's collective struggle, and as an anchor, it's essential to unpack the core of his message and the significance of his call to action. At the heart of Traoré's words is the undeniable acknowledgement that the system of governance in Burkina Faso, until his rise to leadership, was not designed to serve the people. Instead, it was structured to protect a select few, creating an unjust imbalance where the majority of citizens were left to fend for themselves. When he talks about breaking the system, Traoré is addressing more than just the political framework. He is referring to a deeply ingrained culture of inequality, corruption, and exploitation that has persisted for generations. The system as it stood was never for the people. It was a tool to maintain power and wealth for the elite. This systemic issue wasn't accidental. It was a deliberate structure that denied the people the opportunities, dignity, and rights they deserve. Traoré's decision to confront and dismantle this system is not born out of political ambition or desire for personal power. It stems from a deep-rooted belief that true justice is about fairness for everyone, regardless of their status, wealth, or position in society. His statement that breaking the system is about creating fairness rather than simply toppling those in power speaks to his broader vision of social justice. Justice for him is not about redistribution of power for power's sake, but about creating a society where the most vulnerable are not trampled upon, where every citizen has the same rights to education, security, and opportunity. The underlying theme here is unity. Traoré calls for the people of Burkina Faso to come together, not as fragmented groups or individuals, but as one nation with a collective commitment to a common cause, justice for all. He emphasizes the importance of solidarity, reminding the people that the forces maintaining the status quo have worked tirelessly to divide them, to pit one group against another, and to prevent them from realizing their collective power. His appeal is not only political, it's a call for a societal shift in consciousness. If they unite, the people of Burkina Faso can bring about the change they deserve. Breaking the system, however, will not be without resistance. Traoré acknowledges that dismantling the structures of power and privilege will be met with obstacles. Those who benefit from the current system will fight to maintain their control, and there will undoubtedly be difficulties along the way. But importantly, Traoré does not shy away from these challenges. His words convey not only resolve, but also an unwavering belief in the strength of the people. This struggle, he asserts, is not just political or ideological, it is moral. It is a fight for justice, for a society where every individual is valued and treated with dignity. He understands that the change will be painful and that sacrifices will be necessary, but he argues that the cost of inaction is far worse. If the system is allowed to persist, the suffering will continue, and future generations will face the same challenges that have plagued the people for so long. The message is also one of hope. Traore's belief in the potential of his people is evident when he speaks about rebuilding the future. This is not a mere political statement. It is a declaration of faith in the strength and resilience of the people of Burkina Faso. He emphasizes that the struggle is not only about tearing down what is broken, but also about rebuilding something new. He speaks of a future where justice is not a privilege for the few, but a right for all. It's a future where the country's economic, social, and political systems are restructured to ensure that every citizen has an opportunity to succeed, regardless of their background. This vision is bold. It asks for more than just political reforms. It asks for a complete shift in the way society operates, a system where power is not concentrated in the hands of a few, but shared more equitably across all levels of society. A society where basic human rights, such as education, healthcare, and security, are not seen as luxuries, but as fundamental rights guaranteed to every citizen. In the face of such monumental challenges, Traore remains resolute. His speech is not one of uncertainty, but of determination. He is clear about the road ahead. The journey will be long, and the obstacles will be significant, but he believes deeply in the possibility of creating a better future for Burkina Faso. His call for unity, for justice, and for a collective effort to break the old system resonates deeply because it acknowledges the painful realities of the past, while simultaneously offering a vision for a brighter, more equitable future. What stands out most is his insistence that this struggle is not just political, but also personal. He speaks as someone who has lived among the people, someone who understands their pain and their hopes. His vision for Burkina Faso is not shaped by political ambition or the desire for power. It is shaped by the experiences of the ordinary citizen who has long been excluded from the promise of opportunity and justice. Traore's leadership is defined by a sense of duty to the people, to right the wrongs that have been perpetuated for far too long. Ibrahim Traoré's speech is both a declaration of intent and a powerful call to action. It speaks to the deep injustice embedded within the system, but it also conveys a sense of hope and determination. Breaking the system is not just about destroying what is broken, but about building something better in its place. It is about creating a future where justice is no longer a distant dream, but a reality for every citizen. Though the path ahead is fraught with challenges, Traoré's words leave no doubt about his commitment to this cause. He understands that true change requires sacrifice, but he is confident that the people of Burkina Faso, united in their pursuit of justice, can overcome any obstacle and create the nation they deserve. Traore's speech that speaks volumes about the core of his vision. The struggle for social justice is not merely a political issue, it is a moral and ethical one that demands a fundamental shift in societal consciousness. In this part of the speech, Traore draws attention to the fact that the fight for justice transcends political maneuvering. It's not about defeating political opponents or gaining control over state institutions for the sake of power. Instead, it is about addressing a deep-rooted moral problem within the society itself, a system of inequality and injustice that has for far too long been perpetuated under the guise of governance and power. In his view, the heart of the issue is not just a faulty system of government, but a moral failing within the very fabric of society. To fully grasp the weight of this point, we must first understand the context of the society that Traore is speaking to. Burkina Faso, like many countries around the world, has struggled with deep-rooted inequality, corruption, and exploitation. These issues aren't simply the result of bad governance. They are symptoms of a larger moral crisis. For years, the powerful have systematically benefited from a rigged system, while the majority of the population has been left to fend for themselves. In such a system, the powerful have exploited the weak, manipulated the political and economic structures, and denied the majority of people basic human rights and opportunities. This is why Traore is not simply calling for a political revolution, he is calling for a moral revolution. He wants to break away from the mindset that has allowed inequality to persist, that has justified the suffering of millions as an unfortunate byproduct of a flawed but necessary system. By pointing out the need for a fundamental shift in societal consciousness, Traore underscores that the change needed is not simply a change in leadership, but a change in how society views justice, fairness, and opportunity. The significance of this point cannot be overstated. Justice in its truest form is not a mere political issue to be debated in legislative chambers or military strategy rooms. It is a human issue, one that affects the very essence of what it means to live in a society. If society fails to recognize the injustice in its midst and fails to challenge the deep-seated biases, discrimination, and exploitation that have become normalized, no amount of political change will ever be able to address the true needs of the people. Traore's emphasis on the moral dimension of the struggle is also a call for collective accountability. It is not enough for a few leaders to rise up against corruption and inequality. Every citizen must play a part in rejecting the injustices that have been allowed to fester for so long. This kind of shift requires a societal awakening, where people begin to see their neighbors not just as fellow citizens but as fellow human beings who deserve the same rights, opportunities, and dignity. When the public begins to see social justice as a moral obligation rather than a political tool, change becomes not just possible but inevitable. In this context, we can understand why Traore stresses that breaking the system is not just about dismantling political institutions, it's about changing the very mindset that allows injustice to thrive. It is about waking up to the fact that the systems we've created, the ideologies we've accepted, and the norms we've tolerated have only served to uphold a structure that benefits the powerful and leaves the vulnerable behind. The true battle, therefore, lies in breaking away from this moral complacency and challenging the ingrained belief that such inequality is somehow acceptable or even justifiable. To make this moral shift a reality, Traore calls for an empowered citizenry, a society that does not simply accept the status quo but actively works to change it. This involves people refusing to accept the excuses of politicians or elites who claim that justice is too difficult to achieve, that fairness is too idealistic, or that equality cannot happen. The moral revolution Traore envisions is one in which every person becomes an advocate for fairness and justice, not just for themselves but for all others. It is a society that recognizes that true justice is not a zero-sum game, where one person's gain means another's loss, but rather a shared prosperity where everyone has an equal opportunity to succeed. The anchor here is the call to reimagine justice, to see it not just as a matter of law, policy, or politics, but as a matter of ethical responsibility. This perspective is crucial because if the people do not recognize the moral imperative behind the fight for justice, their efforts will always be undermined by the same system they are attempting to break. Social justice must not only be a political goal, it must be a shared moral framework that guides every decision, every action, and every policy that is implemented. What's particularly striking about this part of the speech is that Traore doesn't just call for change on a theoretical level. He makes it personal. He speaks to the people of Burkina Faso as fellow citizens, as individuals who have been failed by a system that has kept them in poverty, fear, and marginalization. He appeals to their sense of humanity, not just their sense of political or economic interests. By framing the struggle for justice as a moral cause, Traore invites the people of Burkina Faso to see themselves not just as subjects of a government, but as active participants in a revolution of conscience. This is a revolution that will require all citizens to reflect on their own roles in perpetuating or challenging the structures of power that have caused such inequality. The moral revolution Traore calls for has deep implications for how social justice movements function. In many movements around the world, political demands can sometimes be reduced to mere policy reforms, often focused on changing structures without addressing the underlying moral and ethical failings that gave rise to those structures in the first place. Traore, however, does not separate politics from ethics. His speech implies that to achieve true social justice, political action must be accompanied by a moral awakening. The people must understand that justice is not simply something they ask for from the state, it is something they must demand from themselves and from each other. This point carries a significant weight because, as Traore implies, a society that does not recognize its moral responsibilities will never achieve true justice. Without a fundamental shift in societal attitudes towards fairness, equality, and human dignity, political changes will only be superficial. It is only when the people as a whole come to realize that they have a moral obligation to care for one another, to demand equality for all, and to reject the injustice that has been normalized, that real and lasting change can take place. Ibrahim Traoré's call for a moral shift in societal consciousness is not just a political strategy, it is a deep transformative challenge to the people of Burkina Faso to rethink what justice means and how it can be achieved. Traoré's vision is not simply for a new system of governance, it is for a new way of thinking, a new way of living, and a new moral foundation upon which the future of the nation can be built. By addressing the issue of social justice at the level of morality and ethics, Traoré challenges every individual to become part of the solution, not just as a passive recipient